Chad Daybell has a Twitter account, a verified Twitter account. This is crazy. Let's get into this. Chad Daybell, for those that don't know who he is, Chad Daybell was found guilty of first-degree murder in the 2019 death of his former wife, Tammy Daybell. And he was also found guilty of conspiracy charges in the death of his second wife's, Lori Vallow Daybell's two youngest children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. On June 1st, 2024, he was sentenced to death by an Idaho jury. Here we are today, and Chad Daybell has a verified Twitter account where he's writing letters. Now, I'm assuming that these are letters that maybe his family is posting or those that are close to him. Yeah, like it's weird. Let's get into these letters. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about Chad Daybell. Hello, my friends. This is Chad Daybell writing to you from my cell in Idaho's maximum security institution. This is the first of several letters I will send. I want to thank everyone who sent me cards and letters while I have been incarcerated. Your kind words of support really helped me. I cherish each one. Are people really sending this guy letters? Okay. I arrived here at the prison in June 2024, and I suppose you could say I've settled in. As for death row itself, I won't be sharing details about my daily schedule or information about my fellow inmates. As the newest arrival on death row, it isn't my place to talk about such things. It really is a different world in here. But I'm surviving, and I spent a lot of time working on my upcoming appeals. I express gratitude to each of you who have been part of my life. While I was in the Fremont County Jail, I spent thousands of hours in isolation cell. I wasn't allowed to have a clock, and it often felt like time stood still. During those challenging days, I would reflect on my life, working forward from childhood to more recent years. As memories came to me, I would write down the names of the people who have been positive influences in my life. I felt strengthened as I remember my extended family members, neighbors, coworkers, classmates, business associates, church members, and friends I have been privileged to know. You have all enriched my life in so many ways. I'm using this method to share my story because I want you to receive it uncensored and unfiltered, directly from me. I'm aware of how I have been portrayed in the media. Frankly, those portrayals of me are unrecognizable. For those that don't know a little bit about Chad Daybell, he was a writer, so I think maybe this might be an outlet for him. He was an author and published books, often about religion and the apocalypse, but he is very much an extremist in his religious beliefs. Let's keep reading. I am not the man the media created. I'm not a cult member who should be feared. I'm not a conspirator or a killer. I never have been. It's a big conspiracy that he's behind bars, y'all. Like I'm telling you, Chad Daybell and Lori Daybell are two of the biggest nuts that I have ever read about, seen in the media. Like, it's crazy to me. I am not a cult member who should be feared. I'm not a conspirator or a killer. I have never been. Am a father, a grandfather, a husband, a son, a brother, and a friend with a firm faith in the gospel of Jesus Christ. I have recently been able to have a few in-person visits with several of my family members, and those have been wonderful. I will always be grateful for the unconditional love and support these family members have been given me. When people find out that my relatives have visited me, they usually ask me, how has he changed? My relatives give the same response. He hasn't changed. He's the same Chad we always knew. People are surprised by the answer after hearing a different story for so long. I'm still the quiet, gentle person you all know. I have always been a peacemaker. Even now in prison, I have never caused anyone's death and never conspired to commit such acts against anyone. I share in your sadness, pain, and grief over the death of Tammy, Tylee, and JJ. I don't have all the answers even now, but I'm grateful a more complete story will be shared during my appeals process. Let's keep going with this mother effer. During my court trial, I followed my attorney's advice to sit quietly not only smile and not show any emotions as evidence was presented. I know that is standard protocol for defendants in the courtroom, but I realize now that it made me appear to be cold and uncaring, which is the opposite of who I am. I assure you, my heart was breaking many times throughout the trial, and there were moments I couldn't hold back the tears, especially as I saw and heard family members suffering the same feelings of anguish that I was experiencing. Yeah, when they went to Hawaii and they got married, Chad and Lori, I mean, they definitely looked like they were like going through a lot of anguish, a lot of suffering, a lot of pain. Yeah. I mean, look at their wedding pictures. Doesn't this just look so like you could see the pain in their faces? You truly can. A key purpose of these letters is to share with you what I have hoped would have been explained in court. I will strive to make each letter informative and worth your time. I fully realize many people will never change their negative opinion of me. In this age of social media, podcasts, and the merging of the mainstream media with law enforcement, very few defendants are portrayed in a positive way. All I can hope is that these letters can begin to generate feeling of healing, reconciliation, and understanding. Thanks again, my friends, for the many ways you have helped and inspired me throughout life. And he posted this August 29th. Okay, this is letter 1. Let's go to letter 2. Oh man, he's got a couple of letter 5s, musical notes. Girl, what is the order? I'm assuming 2 is the next one. Okay. Wait. There's Chad's bookshelf 1 and musical notes. Okay, let's read Chad before we go to 2. Let's read Chad's bookshelf. When I attended Springville Junior High in the early 1980s, I enrolled in woodshop class. The instructor said we could build anything we want, so I decided to make a bookshelf. I designed it myself, and it was about 5 feet high with several shelves. I was pleased with how it turned out, and over the past 4 decades, the sturdy bookshelves has become our family's most enduring piece of furniture. Beds, sofa, tables, and recliners have come and gone, but the bookshelf has made every move with us, and my son now has possession of it. Our family favorite books have resided on those shelves throughout the years, and I'm eager to share the significance of the books in upcoming letters. Okay? One of the most important books I have ever read is A Life Everlasting by Dwayne S. Crowder. It was one of the first books placed on my new bookshelf after I discovered the book as a teenager. The book examines eyewitnesses' accounts of more than 200 individuals who have ventured into the spirit world and returned to tell their experiences. It is LDS themed, but the truth it contains applies to everyone. I will be sharing quotes from it many times in upcoming letters. If you have any interest in where we came from before birth, why we are here on earth, and where we go after death, Life Everlasting provides those answers. The book was published in the 1960s, but Dwayne released an excellent updated version in 2008 with 5 additional chapters I would recommend. And I'm assuming there's a link for anybody that wants to read the book. There are people that are like actually hardy. I got to see some of these comments. This needs removing. Chad should not have a platform. He sits on death row where he belongs. Chad's bookshelf. Now, musical note 1. Lord have mercy. Musical notes. I love all kinds of music, and in my upcoming letters, I will sometimes mention songs that have been the soundtracks to my life. Rather than disrupting the flow of the letter by discussing a song's importance to me at that point, I will include these musical notes afterwards to give added meaning and depth. Most of my memories are tied to specific songs that had an influence in me. However, during my first 3 years in the Fremont County Jail, I rarely heard music. It was a genuine hardship since my life had been immersed in music before my incarceration. Then a few months ago, before my court trial began, the jail staff provided a portable radio I could listen to when I was allowed into the jail's ball court. The court was a concrete rectangle with 20-foot high walls that usually blocked the sun, but it was nice to breathe some fresh air. These There was a giant communication tower directly above the jail that interfered with the radio reception. But if I stood in a certain spot in the ball court and held the radio at the tilted angle, I could hear a few stations: a country station, an oldie station, and a Christian station called K Love came in the best. Oh, K Love. Remember having to listen to K Love. At first, I listened to the other two stations more often, but as I became more familiar with K-Love's songs and their emphasis on Jesus and uplifting topics, I came to rely on those songs to boost my morale. One song that stood out to me was "I'm So Blessed" by the group Kate. It has a catchy beat, and the lyrics include the phrase, "On my best day, I'm a child of God. On my worst day, I'm a child of God." Those were definitely some of my worst days, but the song helped me remember that the Lord was with me all the times, especially when the going got tough. So if you're having a bad day, click on the link. Hopefully, the song helps lift your spirits. Now, if he's putting links in here, I'm pretty sure that this is clearly Chad's family members that are like helping him. You know what I mean? Like, because who's helping him look for links for this? Okay, let's go to letter number 2. Now, I didn't look at the comments for letter number 1. Hold up. Now I'm kind of curious to see if people left comments. Oh, yeah, they left 27 comments. You're going to hell. I wish Chad would have filtered out and censored the bullshit. It's deep and steep and stinks of denial and delusion. At least he's making new friends. He can preach his nonsense too. Won't be me. Maybe someday soon he will teleport out of there permanently. Woo, why have an affair? Emma, how do you explain your own belief in your father's ability to discern light from dark and the events and the deaths that he is convicted for? Emma is his daughter with Tammy Daybell. This comment is directly towards her because clearly somebody is driving this Twitter, right? All right, hold up. So, and then somebody tagged Elon Musk. Can you please shut this page down? Serial killers should have no place on this platform. Somebody said, I don't think anyone accused you and your wife of being cult members. You've been accused of being cult leaders. That's a big, big, big difference. Somebody said, sicko, the whole world knows those babies were burned and buried in your backyard. No letter will change that. Someone said, is this his wacko daughter writing this? Man, this family is creepy. Your dad is a murderer. And he did all that for S. Evil. Oh my God. This is absolute garbage spewed from a convicted S killer. A total goof and scrub who wouldn't support his own family. Someone said, I heard you say ridiculous things straight out of your mouth, Chad. You are delusional. Oh man, Emma, you have been deceived by your own father. Please look at your father and stepmother's actions over the 2019 period. Watch all of their trials and listen to the overwhelming evidence. Learn to look at people's actions, not words, to find their true nature and intentions. Someone said in the comment, this is obscene. Emma, children are not zombies. Children are not evil. And if someone sees evil in children, it's because they are the evil ones. There's no explanation for either your father, your mama Lori, and even you classified children as dark. You are the ones with dark souls. Oh my God, it just keeps going. Like, literally, this is disgusting. You have no friends. They're telling Emma to shut it down. Emma Daybell. I mean, if you just keep going to these comments, it just keeps going and going. And that was on letter 1. Okay, now let's go to letter 2. Let's see what he says on letter 2. Letter 2. This letter is devoted to Tammy. I loved her and still do. She was my life partner and the mother of our 5 amazing children. We built a wonderful family together. We were married for nearly 30 years, and I always sought to keep her safe and protected. This is just so bizarre. She was the anchor of my life, and I never considered harming her. I never considered harming her. Tammy had increasingly severe health issues in the final months of her life, but very few people knew about them. She was an intensely private person who rarely shared personal details with others, much less that her health was suffering. She would put on a brave smile in public and act as if nothing was bothering her. But even those of us who knew about her health struggles never expected her to pass away so suddenly. Uh, oh, and her death has somewhat overshadowed the remarkable woman she was. This guy is crazy. By the way, Tammy's Daybell's death was ruled a homicide. Her initial death was ruled like natural, but then later reclassified because they did an autopsy that revealed that she had been suffocated by another person. Oh my God, let's keep reading this. I want you to get to know the living, vibrant, beautiful Tammy, who blessed so many people with her talent and unique traits. She was strong yet so delicate. We were united in our parenting efforts, our religious beliefs, and in the publishing company we operated together for 15 years. She radiated goodness and charisma, generating a positive impact on everyone around her. She was very kind and loving, but especially to her children and animals. She was always on the lookout for the underdog who might need a boost in life. Tammy and I got married in our youth. I was 21 and she was 19. And over the years, we essentially became one. We didn't officially meet until after I returned home from a 2-year LDS church mission to northern New Jersey. I arrived back in my hometown of Springville, Utah in July 1989. And a few days later, I saw my brother's 1988 high school yearbook on his shelf. I flipped it open and saw a student spotlight about a girl named Tammy Douglas. As I looked at her face, I felt a jolt of electricity pass through me. This beautiful girl with the dazzling smile had my attention. I realized she would have been a sophomore when I was a senior, but I couldn't remember her. I wonder how I could find out more about her. I asked my brother if he knew her, and he said she was working that summer for Springville City. I was in luck. Tammy later told me that she had been keeping an eye on me since her sophomore year. When I was on the student council, she had watched me perform in the craziest skits we did during school assemblies. She had also kept track of me in school halls when I was on my mission, and she had even told her friends, I'm going to date Chad Daybell when he gets home. I attended church activities about a week after the yearbook's experience, and I spotted Tammy immediately when I entered the room. She was playing volleyball, so I joined the other team. Soon we rotated and found ourselves 5 feet apart, staring through the net at each other. After a moment, she said, I'm going to spike it in your face. I smiled, but the only response I could come up with was, oh yeah, very eloquent. I know. But in reality, she had left me tongue-tied. Tammy's eyes seemed to sparkle, and I was delighted that this petite, dynamic woman was clearly spunky as well. I was smitten. When I got home, I couldn't get her out of my mind, so I called her and asked her on a date. I was very relieved and excited when she accepted. Her parents later told me that Tammy had happily danced around the living room after she hung up the phone. Like, why is he telling us this? Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I was Lori and I was reading this, I'd feel some type of way. Just saying. Our first date went great, and we became inseparable right from the start. We both attended BYU Provo that fall and working part-time, but we spent every spare minute together. We became engaged to be married the night before Thanksgiving. I had been thrilled to discover Tammy loved music as much as I did, including some alternative bands such as Oingo Boingo and Depeche Mode. We loved to blast their songs in the car, and I sing loudly along. As Christmas approached, I told Tammy that I had gotten her a gift she would love. but I had discovered that she was a bit of a prankster and I had become her new favorite target. So I decided to give her a little payback. I had been given a pair of really nice writing pens in a small rectangular box. On Christmas Day, I handed her the wrapped box and she eagerly opened. I kept a straight face as she pretended to be happy about the 2 pens. I said, I thought you could use them at work. They're really nice. She nodded and said, thank you, I love them. She started to put the box aside when I said, maybe you should look underneath the pens. She removed the pens to find 2 front row tickets to an upcoming Boingo concert. I hope I'm saying that correctly. She let out a relief laughter and then bowled over me, showering me with hugs and kisses. Oh, and by the way, the band is Boingo Boingo. I did have to look at pronunciation. Okay. Boingo Boingo. That's the name of the band. All right, let's keep going. We were married in the LDS temple in Utah in March 1990, just over 7 months after we met. We held our wedding reception that evening in Springville Art Museum, and seemingly half of the town showed up to congratulate us. Tammy was a lovely bride, and I felt the luckiest man on earth. We rented an apartment in Springville, and we really loved being newlyweds. I had a full scholarship to BYU and worked part-time, and Tammy accepted a full-time secretarial position with Springville City that paid quite well, so we felt rich. We loved to eat at several favorite restaurants, go to the movies, and just be together. We had a fabulous time at Oingo Boingo concert, and those first couple of years of marriage, we attended several others, including a very crazy B-52's concert where we danced the night away. I mean, he like tries to portray himself as like this doting, loving husband, and yeah, okay. Let's get to this. Going to concerts continued throughout our marriage, and we would take our kids along as they got older. We also loved to hold family dance parties with our kids in the front room. Even after moving to Idaho, even now, the children tell me that they get in the car and certain obscure but meaningful songs will often be on the radio, and it feels like Tammy is saying she is nearby. Maybe those songs on the radio are just a coincidence, but either way, it reminds our children of their wonderful mother and the fun we had as a family. I was grateful for Tammy's complete faith and trust in God. In early 2004, I felt like we should start our own book publishing company. I knew it would be a challenge, but I sensed it would be very successful. I told Tammy my feelings, and although she was apprehensive about the idea, she agreed to pray about it. In response, she said she received the strongest spiritual confirmation of her life, and we should move forward with it. We formed the Spring Book Company the following months, and by the end of 2004, we had published 24 books by several talented authors. We sold our books in hundreds of stores across the United States, including Borders and Barnes & Noble. We published several bestsellers, and over the years, we produced more than 100 books by 55 different authors. We won several awards from booksellers organizations, and Tammy deserved the credit. She was the backbone of the company, and she made great things happen through her promotional ideas and internet marketing. Tammy's mom, Phyllis, joined the company as our lead salesperson, and the two of them were a dynamic duo in selling books. I will stop here, but in the next letter, I will discuss our families moved to Idaho in 2015. Let's see, it's very late, September 1st. And there's already some comments in here. Again, they're dragging the daughter, Emma, just so people are aware. It says right here, if you were so in love with her, didn't want to harm her, why were you messing around with that skank and called her a goddess? Lord have mercy. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do the bookshelf, and then we'll do the musical note. Lord have mercy. He writes a lot. Okay. Chad's bookshelf number 2. One of my duties as the editor-in-chief of Spring Creek Book Company was to sort through the many manuscripts submissions we would receive. On the company's website, Tammy had designed, she had created a section on how authors should form their manuscripts and the types of topics our company was looking for. As our success grew, we were receiving dozens of manuscripts each month. There were a lot of aspiring authors out there. However, we only had a few openings each year, since many of our authors were writing additional books. But I still look at each submission just to make sure we weren't missing a diamond waiting to be discovered. I would take the most promising ones home for Tammy to read through. And this team effort worked well in maintaining a high level of quality in our books. It was hard to send rejection letters to those authors we didn't select, but I tried to recommend other publishers who might be a better fit for their books. Wow. Okay. One day I opened a manila envelope and pulled out a manuscript that immediately caught my eye. It told the story of Willard and Rebecca Bean, who were asked by LDS Church President Joseph F. Smith in the early 1900s to serve a mission in Palmyra, New York, the birthplace of Mormonism. The problem the Beans faced was that the church members had left Palmyra many years before, and the townspeople certainly didn't want to return. But the Beans moved to Palmyra, endured initial persecution, and slowly began mending fences, literally and figuratively. Over time, they helped turn around the negative feelings there, purchased historic locations for the church, and finally concluded their mission more than 2 decades later. The manuscript, written by Rand Packer, was powerful and inspirational. I couldn't put it down. Was one of those rare moments as a publisher where you feel, whoa, this is great. I need to sign this book immediately. The book's title is A Lion and a Lamb, referencing Willard as the bold, sometimes brass lion, with Rebecca as the wise, sweet lamb who won over the townspeople with her kindness. I took the manuscript home for Tammy to read, and she was enthusiastic about it. We both knew it would be a bestseller. I contacted Rand the next day, and when we met, there was an instant connection, like meeting a dear friend. We signed a publishing contract and put the book into production. The initial sales were strong, but then it kept selling year after year, especially in the LDS bookstore in Palmyra itself. Word of mouth was strong, and rightfully so, because it is genuinely a great story of faith and perseverance. During the same time frame, the accomplished LDS filmmaker T.C. Christensen had released several successful high-quality movies, and he was interested in producing one based on A Lion and a Lamb. The film's title would be The Fighting Preacher, after Willard Bean's tendency to use his fists as well as his tongue to preach the good word. A film deal was reached, and in July of 2019, the movie had its world premiere in Salt Lake City. Tammy and I invited as guests at the first screening, and we were very pleased with the film. It has all of the elements of drama, humor, heartfelt emotion that are trademark of all TC films. The Fighting Preacher had a long run in theaters, a rarity for LDS films, and is now available in streaming services. Why is he making promotion? Like, is he being paid to promote this ish? After the movie premiered, Tammy and I were invited to meet TC and the film actors. Rand was there, and we shook hands and smiled at each other as if to say, can you believe where the little manuscript has led us? We felt humbled we could play a role in bringing the Beans story to the world. And there's a link there. Is this supposed to sell books, movies, or what? Chad's musical notes, too. Despite my love of music, I don't play any instruments, and my singing skills are barely adequate. I took piano lessons for about a year when I was 8 years old, but I was much more interested in learning to play baseball, and my blossoming musical career came to an end. Meanwhile, Tammy had a natural talent for playing instruments. She first learned to play the clarinet, and then she switched to drums when she was part of the Springville High Marching Band. When our children began taking piano lessons, Tammy joined in and took lessons at the same time. Thankfully, Tammy's musical abilities had been passed down to our children, who all followed in her footsteps of learning to play the clarinet. As the 5 kids worked their way through Springville Junior High, Tammy and I enjoyed decades worth of seasonal band performances. Towards the end, we knew those songs pretty much well. We were grateful to Mr. Booth, the band instructor, for the positive influence he was on our children. Some of our children have branched out to I'm sure some of these bands do not appreciate being mentioned in any of this mess. They're like, leave us alone. Okay, let's go into, I guess, letter 3. This was September 5th. Now, mind you, the one before us was, oh my God, letter 3 is wrong. September 1st. So this was September 5th. This is long. My previous letter concluded with Tammy and I moving our children from Utah to Idaho in 2015. And I will continue from that point. We bought a home north of Rexburg in an area known as Salem. Our children were enrolled at either BYU Idaho or Sugar Salem High School, and they made some wonderful friends. Tammy also flourished in our new surroundings. She loved the rural lifestyle with plenty of property to create her own little farm. She'd always had a soft spot in her heart for animals, but in Springville, we'd had a small yard that limited the types of pets we could have. However, soon after, in Idaho, Tammy began to assemble an ever-growing family of pets, including chickens, pigeons, cats, and a rabbit, and of course, Tammy's favorite pet, Indian runner ducks. She named them all and enjoyed caring for them. She also created several garden areas around the property she would carefully maintain. After moving to Idaho, Tammy and I stayed busy running our publishing company. I was the president and editor-in-chief, while she was the vice president and chief financial officer. I was also making good money writing a weekly online column, along with receiving royalties on my published books. We felt blessed, so Tammy didn't need to work beyond her company duties. But several years earlier in Springville, she had taken a part-time position as the computer lab teacher at our children's elementary school. She loved working with the students at the job, and the job was very rewarding for her. When we prepared to move to Idaho, Tammy looked for a similar position, and she was hired as the assistant librarian at the Madison Middle School in Rexburg. She was later hired at as a librarian at the Central Elementary in Sugar City, which was much closer to our home. She also took on the task of creating a computer lab on the school, modeled after the ones she'd had in Springville. I would visit Tammy at the elementary school every couple of weeks, and I helped her out during an open house event, such as back to school night. It was fun to be greeted by the students as Mrs. Daybell's husband. Tammy had always strived to be physically fit, and in Idaho, she turned part of our front room into the workout area. She enjoyed doing yoga, and she had liked to play several exercise video games, such as Just Dance, Walk It Out, and Exerbeat. It wasn't until the final year of her life that she started having noticeable physical setbacks. She caught a cold during the holidays and battled chest congestions and a deep cough throughout early 2019. She was also experiencing menopause symptoms with regular hot flashes. She was now 48. She says she felt like she had aged 10 years in just a few months. Her exercise routine faded away, and she became content to just sit on the couch, watch TV, and work on her laptop. It just occurred to me, let me stop. This is a verified account, right? So like I had a verified account on Twitter, and I don't anymore because I didn't really like use it like that when it came to Twitter and verification and whatnot. When your account is not verified, there's only so many like words and characters that you can write. This is a verified account. so it allows these letters to be very lengthy. For whoever is typing them up, there's somebody typing them up for Chad, unless somehow he's got access to Twitter, which I highly doubt, on death row. But y'all let me know what you think. And pretty sure it's probably one of his children, like Emma or another one of his children. Let's keep reading this. My children and I encouraged Tammy to visit her doctor for a full health exam, but she resisted going. She had grown up with the firm belief in using holistic medicine and natural healing remedies to regain her health. I had seen these methods produce many positive effects over the years, with Tammy having rapid recoveries, but this time seemed different, as if something had shifted within her body. I regret not being more insistent in having her get a physical exam, because there were 4 major reasons for concerns, and they all got worse as 2019 progressed. First, there was Tammy's lengthy colds and prolonged fits. Second were her lethargy and overall lack of energy. This wasn't the same woman who could walk in the garden and care for her animals all evening without stopping. She began using the phrase need to sit down almost daily after any sustained physical activity. The third reason for concern were her swollen joints and bloating in her abdomen. Tammy initially tried to brush off these symptoms as temporary water retention, but they never went away. One day she came to me and partially lifted her shirt. She grabbed a hold of her belly and said, "Look at this. I can almost hear my guts sloshing around." Around that same time, Tammy and my son attended a health wellness fair. They were examined by a nurse who was bothered by how swollen Tammy's legs were and that she had developed varicose veins. The nurse urged her to see a doctor about it, but Tammy refused. She finally admitted that her condition might be more serious when she called me into the bedroom one day. I found her sitting at the edge of the bed, wiping away tears from her eyes. It was late August 2019, and the new school year was about to begin. As she sat on the bed, she had a pair of pants halfway up to her leg. She said, "These pants fit me just fine at the end of the school year. Now I can't even get them over my hips." She stood up, demonstrated to me in frustration. None of her other school pants fit her either. We went to the store the next day to buy replacements. She ended up having to go up 2 pant sizes. She was very discouraged about it, and she eventually resorted to wearing full-length skirts most of the time to school. The fourth cause of concern was a series of fainting spells. Tammy felt her equilibrium was being affected, as well as her stamina. It wasn't unusual to find her in the kitchen with both hands on the counter with her head down. She would say, "I'm okay, I'm just a little dizzy." Tammy's first major fainting incident happened in April of 2019. She had finished putting the animals away for the night. As she crossed the back driveway, she blacked out and crashed forward onto the asphalt, injuring her wrist. She came into the house and explained what happened, saying her wrist might be broken. I urged her to go to the emergency room, and she refused. She took a herbal remedy instead, and the pain went away in a few days. That summer, we went to the LDS temple. During one of the ceremonies, Tammy fainted, collapsed backwards, and then threw up all over the front of her dress. She was very embarrassed as the temple medical team rushed into the room to care for her. In September, she essentially repeated her fall in the back driveway. She fell in almost the exact spot and re-injured her wrist. This time, she didn't object when I insisted on taking her to the doctor, who prescribed pain medication and gave her a wrist brace to help her heal the damage. I suggested she take a couple of school sick days to recuperate, but she shook her head and said, "No way. You know how much I hate a substitute messing up the library. I'll just sit there if I have to." From that day on, the setbacks came more frequently. Her nose was running constantly, and she had been sneezing, and she would have sneezing fits. She also began to complain that she was having out-of-body experiences. She described how her spirit would hover above her body for a few seconds at a time. In early October, one of those incidents happened while I was in the living room, and she was in the kitchen. I suddenly heard a loud crash and rushed into the kitchen to find Tammy had actually fainted into the open fridge. She had landed hard against one of the shelves and was slumped down in the bottom half. I helped her stand up and told her that I was very worried about her. She just waved her hand and asked me to help her lay down on the couch. The next day, before she passed away, she came home completely worn out from setting up the display from the school upcoming book fair. That evening, she told family members she wasn't feeling well and later had a bad coughing fit before throwing up. We went to sleep, and when I woke up the next morning, she had passed away. I will describe the terrible morning and the subsequent events in a future letter. But as word spreads of her death, everyone was devastated because she had been such a powerful, wonderful influence to so many people. So we all feel that loss every day. I miss her and love her. Tammy was a true angel on earth, and I know she is still watching over our family. My children and I felt her presence many times since her death. We sensed that she was particularly interested in her precious grandchildren. We believe families can be together forever in heaven, and although she has moved on ahead of us, we know we will be reunited with her someday. Okay, and again, this was posted September 5th, and it's letter 3. Okay, now let's go to music note 3 and bookshelf 3. Okay, so music note 3, September 5th. Tammy and I enjoyed taking our kids on several day trips each year. One memorable trip was when we decided to visit the city of Preston, where the ultimate Idaho movie, Napoleon Dynamite was filmed. Our family has watched often enough that we quote the dialogue by heart. For this little adventure, Tammy printed off an online guide and map that showed us the locations where key scenes took place. We drove slowly past the downtown landmarks when stopped to take photos next to Napoleon's tether pole. Finally, we began our quest to find the Dynamite family home. It was surprisingly quite a ways out of town, but we found it. Growing up, the song Private Idaho by the B-52s was my main connection to the Gem State, but the song is clearly not a fair representation of the lifestyle or the musical taste of Eastern Idaho, where Rexburg is located. A better fit is Tim McGraw's Where the Green Grass Grows. Just replace the line about his corn popping up in rows and spuds, and it worked. I love driving in my trunk along the Fremont County back roads with the windows rolled down, potato fields on every side, and the grand tendons in the distance. I just remember one detail. It snowed about 9 months of the year, but we certainly stayed busy during the winter. Our youngest son was in the high school prep band and was also star in the school musical, and it was fun to watch him as we sat among our friends and neighbors. I also enjoyed cheering for the Sugar Salem athlete teams. Then the snow would melt for a while, and we would explore the outdoors, such as Mesa Falls or flown down the Henry Fork River. 3 of my children are raising their families in Rexburg area. I'm grateful my grandchildren will grow in a peaceful place with good people where the green grass grows. Okay, and then there's videos to YouTube, I guess music links. Let's go to bookshelf 3. Oh, it's a long one too. Okay, bookshelf 3. Members of the LDS Church seek to find their ancestors because we believe that if people don't learn about the gospel of Jesus Christ in their life, they will have the opportunity to do so in the spirit world after they die. We believe they will be able to reunite with their loved ones there and live as families in heaven. That's why the LDS Church builds beautiful temples across the world, so gospel ordinance can be performed in behalf of our ancestors. Throughout the 1990s, that was a key focus for us and our extended family members. We completed the temple work for hundreds of ancestors over a period of years. Then later we discovered a woman named Rachel Marlar had been overlooked in our records. Several years had passed since the temple work had been done for Rachel's parents and siblings, and we sensed that she was very anxious to join our family in paradise. We substituted Rachel's name for the temple work, and when family members performed ordinances in Rachel's behalf, they could feel her presence in the temple as if she was watching them take place. The usual part came 2 days later when Rachel appeared to Tammy's grandma Lucille. Rachel stood at the end of Lucille's bed as a spirit dressed in white, and she told Lucille how grateful she was that she could join her family in paradise. One interesting fact is that soon after Rachel visited Lucille, we found an actual photo of her taken in the 1800s. Lucille saw the photo and verified that the woman in the photo was the same woman who had appeared to her in her bedroom. That is why when I wrote Chasing Paradise, the main family has the last name of Marlar, and why Lucille plays a key role as I wrote in the novel. It evolved into a full-blown adventure that takes place both on Earth and in the spirit world as a young woman seeking to reunite with her family in paradise. Okay. So that was the bookshelf, the musical note, and 3. I guess we're going to 4 now. Oh, man. And I believe 4 is the last. Well, no, there's 5. So we got 4 and 5. Okay. Let's go to 4. We're looking for letter 4. And letter 4 was September 8th. Oh, my goodness, y'all. Okay, here we go. This is what he had to say. Sure he's going to make an I'm wondering when he's going to get to where he actually murmured his wife, but clearly probably not. This letter begins with a key event in my life that occurred in 1987, early in my LDS mission to New Jersey. I was part of the first group of Spanish-speaking missionaries called to the New Jersey Morristown mission. We would be sharing the gospel message in some rough urban areas where LDS missionaries had rarely ventured before. My mission began with 9 weeks of training in the Missionary Training Center in Provo, Utah, after which our group of 6 missionaries flew to Newark International Airport. We soon met our mission leader, Dan, and Barbara Workman. We immediately felt their love and concern for us, which continued throughout my life. Thank you, Sister Workman, for your recent letter I received here in prison. Even now, you show such Christian-like support and care for your missionaries. I'm grateful for you. Well, Sister Workman, there's people that are still sending letters to Chad Daybell in support of him. It's crazy. The next morning, President Workman introduced me to my first companion, Elder Hansen, who would function as my trainer during my first couples month in New Jersey. All male LDS missionaries use the title of elder, while female missionaries go by sister. Elder Hansen was a confident Californian who spoke fluent Spanish, while I was a timid teenager from a small town in Utah. He was the right companion to help me cope with the culture shock I was experiencing. Our proselytizing area was the industrial city of Patterson, and I soon learned the citizens weren't always friendly. As Elder Hansen and I walked through the city on our way to an appointment, I waved to a man sitting on a porch step. About 50 seconds later, a couple of apples came whizzing past our heads. Then a block later, I waved to two young boys. They both threw a glass of bottle at me. I decided waving to people might not be the safest thing to do. To reach our appointment, we had to walk through one of the city's most dangerous areas. Ahead of us, a gang of teenagers were taking up the whole sidewalk. I was praying hard for protection, and somehow we made it around them with only a few snide comments. I didn't wave. We finally reached our destination and knocked at the door several times, but no one answered. I suddenly felt exasperated and overwhelmed, and it must have shown on my face. Elder Hansen stuck his index finger in my chest, pushed me against a wall, and said, "Don't start having doubts, man. You know this is the true church and that Joseph Smith was a prophet. Are you going to let a bunch of losers on the street corner change your mind? I thought you were bigger than that." Then he started walking back in the street. I was humbled and humiliated, but I caught up with him. We didn't say a word to each other, but he had made a good point. An image of the Apostle Peter denying Jesus Christ came into my mind, and I suddenly felt very ashamed. When we reached our apartment, I fell into our teeny bathroom and said a fervent prayer to Heavenly Father, apologizing for my weakness. Then I gave thanks for the prophet Joseph Smith, and suddenly my mind opened up. It felt like I was actually witnessing the first vision when Joseph, as a 14-year-old boy, saw and talked with the Heavenly Father in Jesus Christ. I felt the Spirit of God burning within me, and I knew without a doubt this event really happened. That day I had experienced fear, exasperation, and even doubt. But then I received an outpouring of truth and comfort. We had a bold, powerful group of missionaries, and we accomplished much good in the area. Elder Hansen and I eventually became close, and after our missions, we stayed in touch. He later moved to Colorado, where he became a successful businessman, and he and his wife raised a beautiful family. Why did I share the experience with you? Because from that day on, I have been completely devoted to the LDS Church. I have served in many different callings, including being part of four different bishoprics. During that time, I was asked to assist with several churches, disciplines, councils that were held for members who wanted to clear up misdeeds in their lives. These meetings usually began with some awkward feeling, but I was amazed to watch loving church leaders turn the meeting into positive spiritual experiences. Expressions of support would be given, tears would be shed, and the person would feel a sense of relief, like a great burden had been lifted. It was inspiring to watch a humble church leader help a person who felt desolate and alone regain hope and faith through the atonement of Jesus Christ. With that backstory, it is true that I'm currently excommunicated from the LDS Church. They excommunicated him. Sadly, I didn't receive an opportunity to have a compassionate church leader hear my side of the story. I would have happily welcomed a visit from my church leaders during my 4 years in Fremont County Jail, but no one ever came. Instead, I learned that I had been excommunicated through the mail more than a month after the discipline council had taken place. At the jail, the deputies would put my mail address to me in a big manila envelope, which was held until my attorney's next visit. He and I would then sort through the mail together. When he visited me in September 2020, we emptied the manila envelope, and among the letters were 2 envelopes from the LDS Church stake president, my local leader. I'd have a good relationship with him over the years, and I initially expected these envelopes to contain letters of kindness, support, and encouragement. However, I opened the first envelope and read a print from letter informing me a discipline council would be held regarding my church membership. It felt like an arrow had pierced through my heart. I took a deep breath and opened the second envelope. This letter said that the council had been held and that I had been excommunicated for apostasy. The letter stated I had 30 days to appeal the decision, but by that time the deadline had already passed since the jail had been holding my mail. I have still never found out what evidence was presented in the disciplinary council or who testified against me. The church scriptures known as the Doctrine and Covenants explain excommunication procedures in depth. Section 102, verse 18 reads, "In all cases, the accuser and the accused shall have a privilege of speaking for themselves before the council." That obviously didn't happen in my situation. I would have loved to have known what transpired in the meeting, but the church had resisted my efforts to obtain the records. He was probably excommunicated because they were like, "We don't F with you," and the stuff that you did. But I also wonder, like, they didn't maybe want that kind of a reputation. The LDS Church receives a lot of backlash for various reasons, especially in Utah. But what do you guys think? I readily admit that I have my flaws and weaknesses that I'm striving to overcome, but I'm not guilty of the great sins attributed to me. The thought of associating with an apostate groups or teaching false doctrine is absurd to me. Please at least let me know what specific doctrines I was supposedly teaching. Who are my accusers? When and where did I say these things? So for these reasons, I still consider myself an active member of the LDS Church. They don't claim you, Chad. They don't. My excommunication process didn't follow scriptural guidelines, and apparently no effort was made to verify I had received the notification letters. At the very least, I deserve a chance to talk to a church leader in person and answer any accusations of misconduct. This is so crazy. This man is more worried about the excommunication of this, which I'm like, I guess if you're in this, right? Like he's more worried about this than like the criminal aspect, like the things that he has been convicted for. He's more worried about making sure that he proves his case to the church versus the criminal side of things. That's just crazy to me. I deserve a chance to talk to a church leader in person and answer my accusations of misconduct. Okay. I have never felt a decrease in my priesthood power or a loss of the influence of the Holy Ghost. I have actually felt an increase in those areas, which have been a great comfort and blessing as I deal with my current circumstances. I fully support the LDS Church's first presidency and the quorum of the 12 apostles. I follow these teachings and I'm working on my own salvation through the power and grace of the atonement of Jesus Christ, my Savior. In conclusion, let me return to Elder Hansen, my first missionary companion. When he heard the news that Tammy had passed away, he canceled his busy schedule and rushed from Colorado to Springville in time for her viewing and funeral. When I saw him walk into the viewing room, my heart filled with gratitude and appreciation for this great man. As he came through the viewing line, we embraced, and I knew one of my true brothers in Christ was there to support me. We took a few moments to catch up, and he humbly told me he was serving as an LDS stake president. I wish he had been mine. I wish he had been mine. Okay, so this is again letter 4, September 8th. That was a lengthy letter, but it said interesting things. Okay, so we're going to go to, I guess, musical note 4. Oh my goodness. Again, very lengthy. Music note 4. When I was an LDS missionary in the late 1980s, we weren't allowed to own electronics, especially radios. According to the missionary handbook, popular music could potentially drive away the spirit. That might be true, but the big cities of northern New Jersey missionaries didn't have a radio. We were literally surrounded by every type of music. As we walk along the main boulevards, the traffic would cruise past us at a decent speed, but it felt like we were listening to one continuous radio broadcast because every vehicle was blasting the same station over and over. We heard broadcasting from the top of the Empire State Building. You're listening to Z100. Sometimes it seemed like Z100 had captured 100% of the listening audience. About 2 weeks after I arrived in New Jersey and shortly after my humbling experience described in the letter, Elder Hansen and I were invited to attend a wedding. It was for a couple that Elder Hansen had known earlier in his mission and would take place in Jersey City. President Workman granted us permission to attend as long as the church members gave us a ride to and from the wedding. I was excited because I hadn't yet been able to see the Manhattan skyline up close. Elder Hansen said we would be a few blocks from the Hudson River with a nice view of the Twin Towers. Elder Hansen had arranged for a young couple from the Jersey City ward to pick us up outside of Patterson's apartment. My eyes nearly popped out of my head as a very fancy sports car pulled up to stop in front of us. Elder Hansen smiled at me and said, "Come, climb on in." We are both tall, so it was a very tight squeeze for us in a small back seat. But we were soon zooming down the freeway, and I was eagerly soaking in these sights. I enjoyed seeing Giant Stadium for the first time, and I listened as Elder Hansen chatted with the man who was driving us. Oh my God. Like, such a long-winded post. Get to the point. Let's keep going, y'all. And then we got closer to Jersey City. The woman in the passenger seat said, "Sorry to interrupt, but I love this song." She turned up the volume on the car's excellent sound system, and I recognized the voice of Whitney Houston, who had dominated the airwaves through 1986 and 1987. But this song was new to me after having been sequestered in the missionary training center throughout the summer. The woman began dancing happily in her seat and started singing along animatedly. It was quite a show. Then when she reached the chorus of "A Lasting Memory was imprinted into my brain. I get so emotional, baby, every time I think of you. I get so emotional, baby. Ain't it shocking what love can do?" Okay, Chad, leave Whitney Houston out of your musical notes. Like, leave. Like, you're weird. At that moment, I caught a good glimpse of the top of some Manhattan skyscrapers, including the Empire State Building. Suddenly, I was the one getting so emotional. It was the equivalent of a spiritual experience as we entered Jersey City, where I would be transferred a couple of months later. In this city, I would later meet amazing people and witness literal healing miracles. But in that same instance, I just basked in the wonderful realization that it was possible to have fun, joyful experience on a mission and through our lives. So whether you like the song or not, I consider Whitney Houston So Emotional to be a sacred hymn. I don't expect it to be included in the new LDS hymn book, but it would certainly add some life to our sacrament meetings. By the way, if you happen to cross paths with some LDS missionaries, please give them a smile and wave. It just might be what they need. You'll make their day. By the way, there's no comments on that. Y'all leave Whitney Houston alone. Chad Daybell, don't mention her. I don't think Whitney wanted her song added in any kind of LDS hymn or anything like that. Lord have mercy. Hold up. Let's get to that was, what was that? That was music note 4. Now we got to go to the bookshelf. Bookshelf 4. This is not as lengthy, but we're almost done. September 8th, bookshelf 4. I have had a lot of heroes in my life, often from the world of sports. I've always been a fan of BYU's basketball and football teams. To the NCAA Elite Eight, and the quarterback factory kept churning out superstars such as Jim McMahon and Steve Young, who would both lead NFL teams to Super Bowl victories. But my ultimate hero is Joseph Smith, after Jesus, of course. When Joseph was an obscure teenage farm boy, an angel appeared to him and told him his name would be known for good and evil among all nations. Persecution intensified against him and his family, and it never let up the rest of his life. Supposed friends repeatedly betrayed him, and he endured dozens of arrests on false charges, spending many months in dark, damp jails. Yet he somehow maintained a positive attitude and accomplished incredible defeats. He translated the Book of Mormon from ancient records and founded the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He revealed many profound internal truths and designed new cities, yet made time to raise a good family and care for his church members. Sadly, his persecutions finally succeeded in their goal when Joseph was brutally murdered at the age of 38 by an angry mob that stormed the jail in Illinois. The church has published a 4-volume history titled Saints, and the first volume covers the life of Joseph Smith. Reads like a novel, but it is all true. If you want to read about a great American hero, give Saints Volume 1 a try. You'll also gain an appreciation for the pioneers who later crossed the plains and established Salt Lake City in the middle of wilderness. Oh my God. So he was convicted. Who created a new religion? This is what somebody said in the chat. And by the way, I don't know, people might not know this about me, but I lived in Utah for like 4 years. It's an interesting place. I'll say that much. Definitely a different kind of culture there. That's for sure. Okay, let's keep reading. And of course, there's a link for, his recommendation on the church's history and everything. All right, let's go to number 5. Oh man, I think this is the last one for now. Letter 5, okay? Significantly long. Letter 5. I'm eager to explain the events of 2019 to you, but it is very important that I first build a solid foundation of facts. Oh my God. Facts or excuses. Once these facts and my religious beliefs are properly explained, the events of 2019 will finally make sense. During my court trial, I was bothered at how simple, well-known beliefs were twisted by the state into sinister, frightening ideas that the state repurposed, claiming these ideas were the catalyst for terrible crimes I did not commit. Time after time, it was the state who defined what my religious beliefs are, not the witnesses on the stand. As I read through the trial transcripts, it is even more obvious on paper The state repeatedly made inaccurate statements in the form of questions, and the witnesses would get into a rhythm of saying yes or correct many times in a row without hesitation. The result was a distortion of my beliefs, and I think an incomplete picture of half story of what the witnesses actually heard or saw. And unfortunately, my lawyer failed to fill in those blanks on cross-examination. So it is best to begin by sharing with you my near-death experiences. I feel like we kind of know this. I mean, if you watch any of the documentaries, you would know that this is something that people have said shaped Chad Daybell, which have been very significant impact on my life. There have been 4 times in my life when I actually died and my spirit had gone into another realm before returning to my body. Lord have mercy. Okay. The LDS Church teaches that human beings consist of 2 parts, a spirit body and a physical body. The spirit body resides inside the physical body, and it gives it life. When he died, the spirit and the body separated from each other. The spirit continues to live and goes into the spirit world while the body ceases to function. For example, picture your spirit as your hand and your body as your glove. The glove is just covering, and it can't move without your hand inside it. A near-death experience, or an NDE, near-death experience, is like when the hand is briefly removed from the glove and then put back inside. NDEs can be found in historical records dating back thousands of years among all races, nations, and religions. They have been part of the LDS lore since the church was founded, and NDEs were regularly printed in the church's newspaper and magazine. Many NDEs indicate, as LDS doctrine confirms, that before we were born, we lived as part of a heavenly family. We were eager for the chance to come to earth and receive physical bodies. We understood it would be a challenging experience, but that was our time on earth would help us grow emotionally and spiritually. We all help write our own life plan or blueprint for what we would accomplish during our lives, who we would interact with, and when our life would end. And most NDEs occurred when someone dies, but it isn't their time to go. They are sent back into their body to complete their life mission. Can you imagine if he actually had died? If anything that he's saying is true, right? Like, this man wouldn't have gotten a hold of, Tylee, JJ, or Tammy, or any of these people. It's just crazy to me. My first near-death experience was rather short, but it had a profound effect on me. It was August 1985, and I just turned 17. I was at a Flaming Gorge Reservoir in northern Utah as part of the church youth group that included several of my friends. We had started the day by leaping into the reservoir from cliff ledges along the lake shore that were about 20 feet high. That was fun, but then we noticed a 60-foot high cliff that jetted out over the water. It looked like a natural diving board. We saw someone jump off of it, and soon we were scrambling up the hillside to reach it. Once we got up there and saw how high it truly was, we were intimidated, but we were also stupid teenagers. My friend convinced me that I should jump first. I shook off my nervousness and gazed down at the water below me. Finally, I pushed off with my right foot and began my descent. I remember thinking, this is taking a real long time. When I eventually hit the water, it felt like I had slammed into concrete. A shock went through my entire body, and I saw a flash of white light. I felt an audible pop at the base of my skull and thought, oh no, I broke my neck. I also wondered if I'd cut open my forehead because there was a brief searing pain above my ear. I quickly realized something even more alarming had happened. My spirit was partly out of my body. How did you realize this? The best way to describe it, it's a physical body went deeper into the water than my spirit did. This caused my spirit to pop out through my head, but my spirit needs stuck in my skull. In other words, for some reason, I didn't make it all the way out of my body. It was more like 3/4 out. So your spirit was stuck in your body in the skull area? Okay. During those few moments, I was in another dimension. I saw endless white plain in all directions, and I heard a deep, rich melody that sounded like a synthesizer. ASL pondered the music later. I wonder if this is a typo. Maybe he meant to say I pondered the music later. It was very familiar to a song called 1984 that opened Van Halen's 1984 album. The song is an instrumental that is just over a minute long, and it definitely has the same uplifting, rich, heavenly sound that I heard while out of my body. I noticed the pain was gone and that I had initially experienced. There was a soothing warmth surrounding me, and I saw little pebbles of lights and energy rushing towards me from all directions. These pebbles were absorbed by my spirit, and I felt wonderful, even euphoric, and at complete peace. However, my physical body soon started to float towards the surface. My spirit quickly reversed course through my head and was sucked back into place. I instantly felt chilled and somewhat paralyzed. I must have taken a while getting to the surface because one of my friends who had been standing on the shore had jumped into the water and to rescue me. He grabbed a hold of me and toted me the water's edge. All I said to him was, "Something snapped when I hit the surface. I'm done for the day." After I returned home from the flaming gorge, my entire body was sore for a week. I fell off kilter, like my body and my spirit were disjointed. Sometimes my right eye would go blind, but if I hit the side of my head with my palm, I could see again. On the other hand, I was spiritually changed. I glimpsed another dimension and it felt like home. I still live a normal life, graduating from Springville High School and then completing my freshman year at BYU Provo. Then during my LDS mission, during certain spiritual gifts increased, I was better able to receive prompting and impressions that help keep me out of danger. As I mentioned earlier, I have died 4 times. I will describe the second incident in the next letter. Oh my God. It happened while I was on vacation with my family in San Diego, California. I was struck by a large wave at La Jolla Cove and was not completely out of my body this time. I really needed to stay out of the water. Oh my God. This is just crazy, y'all. And there's like so many comments under this one. Somebody said these letters bring no value. What BS? Absolute garbage. According to Chad's sister-in-law, his books were fiction until he realized gullible people would believe that they were biographies. Extreme religion gave him a way to be someone. It's sad that his children still believe his crap. For death, I mean that the people are dragging him in the comments, just letting y'all know. Okay, so that was letter 5. Now we got to go to the gospel and the bookshelves. Okay, so here we go with musical note 5, September 11th. All major religions believe in a divine being, a higher power, or a heavenly father. The LDS Church takes the concept to the next level by teaching that we are all part of an eternal family and we are the literal spirit children of heavenly parents. I hope that idea is comforting to you. We have a set of loving parents watching over us, cheering us on, assisting us with our earthly journeys. There are times when we feel alone, of course, but be assured our heavenly family members are always nearby. The LDS doctrine of a heavenly mother was first taught by the prophet Joseph Smith. A woman named Zena D. Young, who would later serve as the LDS Church's General Relief Society president, was deeply saddened by the death of her mother. Zena spoke to Joseph and her intense grief and asked him, "Will I know my mother as my mother when I get over to the other side?" Joseph responded, "Certainly you will. More than that, you will meet and become acquainted with your eternal mother, the wife of your Father in heaven." Among the people that Joseph taught this doctrine to was Elisa R. Snow. She was well known for her poetry. She had published many poems prior to her baptism into the church in 1835, and she wrote throughout her life. Elisa wrote a poem about this topic of heavenly parents in 1945 titled "My Father in Heaven." The poem was soon transformed into the hymn "Oh My Father," and it was included in the 1851 LDS hymn book. In 1855, the Desert News reported it was Brigham Young's favorite hymn. The hymn has been sung by LDS congregations ever since, but the powerful lyrics are often taken for granted. They cover the entire LDS plan of salvation, such as our premortal spiritual spirit life, the veil of forgetfulness when we come to earth, the purpose of life, and the return after death to our heavenly Father parents. Here are the hymns, 4 verses. I'm not reading those. It's crazy, man. Like, he writes in here after he lists all that. It's truly a tender poem expressing the longing we feel to embrace again our heavenly parents. I hope we can follow their example. We are here on earth to build each other up, help each other along, and be a positive influence regardless of our current earthly situation. Money, fame, power don't matter. Charity, love, and kindness are the key to joy and happiness in this life and in the world to come. Okay. And of course, there are some comments in here. Somebody said, what a way to further manipulate your children. Somebody said, LOL. Okay, so we read the letter. I guess we're on the bookshelf 5. Musical note, letter 5, bookshelf. And I think we're done. Oh, Lord have mercy. It's short. Okay, good. Bookshelf 5. In the 1970s, several scientists and researchers began to study modern day reports of near-death experience, or NDEs. Dr. Raymond Moody, book Life After Death, compiled several of these accounts and brought NDEs to the attention of the general public. At around the same time, Dr. George Ritchie wrote a fascinating first-person account of his death, his journey into another realm, and then his return to his body. His book is Return from Tomorrow and has sold millions of copies worldwide. These books and others like them have helped people believe in afterlife, when we will reunite with our deceased family members, friends, and even pets. I recently became aware of NDEs that happened to Jeremy Renner, the famous actor who played the character Hawkeye in the Marvel Avengers movie. As you likely know, Renner was involved in a devastating accident on New Year's Day in 2023 when he attempted to stop a snowplow from hitting his nephews. Renner suffered severe injuries with more than 30 broken bones. His recovery took many months, including having a learn how to walk again. He has written a book titled My Next Breath about his ordeal. Renner also shared a story on an episode of Kelly Ripa's Let's Talk podcast. He explained to her that during this accident, he felt his spirit leave his body. He said, "It's a wonderful, wonderful relief to be removed from your body. It's the most exhilarating peace you ever felt." He added, "It's the highest adrenaline rush, but the peace that comes with it, it's magnificent. It's so magical." Rainer didn't really want to return to his body. He was actually a bit angry about it. He saw his damaged legs and thought, yeah, that's going to hurt later. Rainer was only in the afterlife for a few minutes, but the experience was a great confirmation to him about what is really important in life. He says the experience taught him to repel the things he had given so much value to before, and he now sees as having zero value. He said he now invests his energy into love and his relationship with others. These books I've mentioned, as well as movies such as Ghost and The Sixth Sense, have helped to make your near-death experience and the reality of the afterlife an accepted part of an American culture. Oh man. Somebody say you're ignorant, child murderer. This is great because the people are really going at him. Somebody said, "I wonder if he'll have a near-death experience when he carries out his sentence. That'd be scary if the near-death experience cult master had to go through his sentence again and again, seeing heaven just long enough to be kicked out by the wife and children he kayed." Oh my God. Listen, Linda. I mean, all of this is happening on X. That's where he has his platform and everything. But I mean, should he have a platform? Should he be able to kind of speak? And should his daughter or his children be posting this stuff? Because it sounds like it's close family members. What do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think. Because I mean, he's like literally denying. He's literally denying the crime. He's literally not taking any accountability, and I wouldn't expect somebody like him to do that, to take any kind of accountability or make a confession here. I don't know, man. I guess anybody can have a Twitter account. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.